All right. So, one of my favorite things in combat sports gear is forensics. Not CSI, but gear forensics. Looking at a glove and figuring out what it was made for, how it aged, and how it died or how well it lasted. Today, I'm doing that with this pair of old top 10 gloves, possibly 10 years old, maybe older. And the interesting part is they look way better than they should for their age. So let's figure out what these are. So we know it's top 10 gloves made in Germany. Old top 10s have a different build philosophy than a lot of modern mass produced gloves. More conservative materials, more industrial safety thinking. I can see there used to be a screen print on the palm that looks like it was an approval mark for a competition, something like AIBA, IBA style approval. But it's rubbed off so I can't read it. It's also red and 10 ounce, which matches competition weight and color. But from these clues, I'm now pretty certain these weren't everyday training gloves. They were designed like an amateur competition glove, the kind that has to pass inspection and weight checks. I can also tell it's for competition by the glove shape. It's long and narrow, with a narrow wrist and a bubble top. This is meant to make it easier for judges to score punches, but also to pad the knuckles and the face. So these are boxing competition gloves and probably not IFMA or WACO competition gloves. I can't find this exact model online, and knowing it's an older pair and for competition is probably discontinued. Competition rules tend to change, which makes older models obsolete. Whenever there are new requirements, you need new gloves. And since AIBA went through a name change to IBA, that becomes another reason to discontinue gloves. So I can't tell you the exact model name. A lot of these older European competition gloves weren't marketed with clean model names like modern retail gloves. They were sold through federations, clubs, and event suppliers. But I can still tell what category it's in. It's an older amateur competition glove, likely from that AIBA IBA era. Now the padding. On the site, Top 10 calls it molded PPS foam. And it has to be molded, as I've discussed with US MTO gloves, because for amateur competition, you want them all uniform in weight and shape, and using a mold helps ensure that. PPS stands for Professional Protection System, which means it passes higher quality standards than typical IMF or injection molded foam. But that also means it's more expensive and harder to mass produce. Even when you press into it, it's much spongier and softer than IMF. It compresses and rebounds better. Almost feels like medium density layered foam. What else stands out is how it's aged. After 10 plus years, the knuckle area still looks smooth. No weird surface texture like pebbling. That tells me the foam aged in a more uniform way instead of turning into a crater mess like normal IMF. It has good rebound and is more flexible than typical IMF. They've probably been mostly used in competition. How often? I don't know. So a lot of the wear and tear comes from age. Even if you never use a glove, it will still age and wear down. Now the cuff. If you're used to modern boxing gloves, this cuff looks almost like a Muay Thai glove, rounded and stiff. But rounded doesn't automatically mean Muay Thai. This cuff is stiff, but it doesn't feel like it's giving modern wrist support. And visually, it looks like the glove is built as two separate systems. The big padded glove body, including thumb, and a cuff collar that's kind of its own piece. So it's two separate pieces of foam. The strap also originates from the cuff, not from the opening. And none of this is by accident. A lot of older competition gloves are built like a floating impact capsule plus a wrist collar. The collar gives shape, helps inspection, keeps edges from being sharp, but it's not meant to act like a long wrist brace the way modern training gloves do. So, stiff cuff, rounded profile, but not tons of wrist support. That lines up with competition logic. You don't want equipment giving someone extra leverage. Now look at the leather shell. You don't even have to use leather for competition gloves, but this brand decided to, and that's part of what impressed me the most. The leather has wrinkles, which is normal, but there's no catastrophic cracking, no delamination, no seams exploding. The shell basically outlasted everything else, and that's a sign of good leather and good construction hierarchy. The best built gloves fail internally first, foam and liner, while the shell still looks great. A lot of modern gloves do the opposite. The outer layer peels or cracks before the padding is even fully dead. In fact, with most retail gloves, the hook and loop goes first, which essentially makes the glove unusable even though the padding and shell might be good. For these gloves, the hook and loop is still rock solid. Why doesn't every glove use high quality hook and loops? Because it's expensive to mass produce, and it's cheaper to source locally made generic hook and loops, which are cheap and don't last long. Top 10 has higher standards for its gear, which is why even the hook and loop lasted so long. The synthetic PU on the Velcro strap, however, is delaminating and coming off. That should be the order of things. The PU and synthetics shed first before other things wear out. Maybe even the liner wears out first. Another thing that's lasted is the screen print on the glove that says top 10. It hasn't faded. So like the Velcro, they didn't cut corners. So why did the ABA approved print fade? Because it's meant to. You're not supposed to use it beyond that point. So if it's faded, it's no longer competition approved. It's already been used. So as far as the shell goes, it's aged beautifully. If you look again at the liner, you can see the cuff and the palm are suede. So from that, we can deduce this is one intact piece of top grain hide, which is why it's so durable and has lasted. Some of the color has faded and aged, but you don't see pieces of top coat or paint chipping or cracking. And that's because this leather wasn't painted to be red, but drum dyed. So the color isn't paint or a coating on top of leather, but the color of the leather itself. Since Top 10 is the official gear for so many amateur combat sports organizations, they have a reputation to think of, so all their gear tends to be high quality. Hopefully you found this deep glove dive to be educational. If you want a list of all the products I use to maintain my gear, check the description box below. If you want more content like this one, make sure to subscribe.